other healing properties. So I took divine herbs, shea butter, coconut oil, olive oil, grapeseed oil. You hear where we're at so far, right? Almond, avocado oil. The essential oils are peppermint, eucalyptus, tea tree, clove, ginger, rosemary, lavender, lemongrass, frankincense, patchouli. Now, all of these properties are great for, they have a number of things they can do. So, the number one thing I push it for is for swelling of the joints. Sisters have cycle problems, they rub it on their stomach, they rub their backs, release their pain. Where I work on my feet all day. When I come home, I rub my feet down. It takes away my swelling on my feet. I'm good. So this is something that you may want to try for any type of pain, any kind of pain. But it all actually comes back to our diet, because at the end of the day, you use these products, it's going to relieve your pain, but then you say, well, how do I have this swelling? It's our diet. So this only will refer you back to your diet. Gifts back for your time.
Islam.
So what's the donation?
Islam.
The denominations is 10 notes. And I also have a website as well. You know, I started thinking outside of the box, like thinking, well, how can I get it out there? So what I do is actually come out and, you know, I'll present it to ones and I have some samples, so everyone that's here, I'll just give you a sample of it, so you can rub some on your hand, and, you know, if you have any discomfort, by the end of this evening, it will be released. I know that for sure. My 17-year-old daughter's in the back, she can testify that she's used it for different things, the ankle, stomach, really works. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Let me get that website.
She said, wait, is there any secret ingredients? Well, yes, there are secret ingredients.
Hold on, in lieu of Article 24 of the
Yes,
United
yes.
Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People,
Okay,
make
we're
sure
not
that's your
recording.
disclaimer.
We're not recording.
Yeah.
No,
Let's make
but you know,
sure.
it's actually .com. RastaJohnsHands.com.
Oh, I missed something. You said Rasta something.
Rasta John.
Okay, so it's
JRASTJOHN Hands HANDS.com. And you can order right from the site.
Thank you.
I got over clear. How can I do it? Just do it. It's been there 2 years, and it's, you know, some people, they don't get up to it. They say, oh, I can't do it. So
What's going on? And as we talked many times, there are certain things that we keep doing redundantly. If people would get the concepts, they would liberate themselves. It's sort of like Prophet Noble said, if I could just get you all thinking again, you'd free yourselves. In other words, it's not complex. But knowing that most people are not aware of the kingship or oligarchy. However, this is the whole point. All scholars know that. And anyone in a position of authority knows that. They don't emphasize it. They're aware of it. And so when people are trying to solve their economic, social, and political problems, and they approach it outside of understanding the venue that they're actually in, they're automatically, unfairly declared incompetent by the magistrate. Then he puts a barrister on them who they think is a law officer who's really a deputy knight for the discovery doctrine. And this is what keeps happening to us over and over again. Now, and you know, in the last year, we've been over reversion here and there over and over again. But at the moment, you know, we have some questions. You can ask questions over and over again, you can answer them over and over again. If you don't know the dog that you're dealing with, you're gonna get bit. Even when you know that the dog's gonna try to bite you, but you need to know that the dog's trying to bite you. And this is the reason we talked about doing the reversion statement again, but I'm going to go into another part of it and prepare everybody to give an understanding of even the conversation that because it's all related.
And I talked to a sister today and she said, oh, I used a portion, she said, no, not all of it, but she said, I used a portion of the reversioner to deal with the situation that she had, and it worked out well for her. I think what might be part of the problem, and correct me if I'm wrong, for some people, they get the information, but if they don't know how to apply it, if they don't feel skilled to stand and present themselves, and that's what we're talking about, because we always represented, or you know, we need somebody to represent us.
We need to present.
Yeah, so because we can't present ourselves, and they don't feel like they have the skill, they hear it,
This is why they must know the history.
yeah, because you get there and you go, what if, you know, what if I stand before this, you
Wrong
know?
move.
Yeah.
Now.
If it's wrong, but I'm saying that I'm just
But
being,
look at this, let's look at this. Why are most people intimidated? It's because they lack understanding. Not because they're really totally in a subordinate position that they feel. Is that they get a little bit of information, they know they're getting screwed. Their concepts are that lawyers and attorneys deal with Constitution preserved law, not knowing that they're actually deputy knights for the Pope of Rome. So their concepts are wrong. They think that the person sitting up on that bench is a judge when he's a private administrator of the World Global Trust under oath of the 3rd article of Treaty of Verona and Act 1. All scholars know this. All scholars know this. All ministers know this. And particularly all grand seekers and people that claim to support neutrality, which is why the movement exists for the restoration of the stolen birthright, because that's where it was stolen.
it's the masses.
You understand what I'm saying to you? So what is the job of someone who knows? Not someone who's, you ain't master teacher, that's basic stuff. If you have a child that can't count, you can't send them to the store anymore because they keep going to the store with 100 note, come back with 2 cents, and talk about the loaf of bread, talk about it's a matter of interpretation. No, you teach them to count. It's very simple. Synopsis. Please, because of our conversation, interject when you please do.
Okay,
And so that we can work this out.
all right.
Because people need to know, even you all need to know why you're here. Beyond the moment, you know, with the unborn in these stargates womb. That's what we're really after. Because most of the old elders are contaminated, meaning that they're willing to be sacrificed, but they're willing to take the young widow. Now this is back to the other issue. What is the real issue with our people and what makes them uncomfortable with this information? It's 2 things, and this is very blunt. It makes people uncomfortable, and a lot of people don't like me for being blunt about it, but it's what it is. It makes them see their idol gods for what they really are, because they do not work and have not worked with them, and they're not wanting to admit it. Then others, it exposes them because their fears, their hesitation to what they know is truth, shows that the European is really their God, and they don't want anyone else to pay attention to that, because they've been saying, I only fear God, Allah, and Jesus, and Muhammad, and Buddha. They fear that European, which is why whenever he speaks, they shake. Whenever he speaks, they breathe. I gotta make an application to get a breathing license. Can't even do the child's hair. I got to make an application so I can do my child's hair. That European is their God, and this information exposes their hypocrisy too. Nevertheless, because we're being fed on every day, What do you do with people who really don't understand what they're dealing with? Show them the background of the canvas that this painting is on, that is hidden. Because this thing is all in color. And color means artificial. It ain't got nothing to do with complexion.
Right.
Scholars know that, but believers don't because the leaders won't tell them because they keep taking their 501c3 kickback change, you know, in the background, pretending this Jesus is half and Allah is half and all this stuff. This is why they stay away from this information. However, we're going to go, of course, a real synopsis real quick for some, but it's to clear your concepts. You can take someone, as an example, that knows absolutely nothing, but got a little bit of guts. Child even. Give them the background and history, what got us to where we are. They can't wait to get active.
That's right. That's right.
Mhm. A compromised adult, someone who has a handler, or an operative, they start getting all confused. Well, see, the two and two, just spiritually, really could be three. And they start that debate, and you'll argue with them for 2 hours. You already know they're compromised. So the deal is give people the facts, let them look at it. The protocols are almost obvious. So let's begin. All right. And interject when you please do. Now, we've been over this many, many times, you all. But for the sake of those who may not have a clear understanding or comprehension of where we are with this, why you're in the condition you're in. Why is it our communities are poor? Why are our communities being gentrified across the land easily with limited counter move? How is it that our people think they're inheriting houses and land from their grandma that they should have had, and all of a sudden the corporate state got it, or the county takes it? Meanwhile, they got all these gods that they've been having pictures on the walls, crosses, and everything else they got on the wall. Everybody comes and takes their peanut butter sandwiches. And they're always praying and marching and praying and marching and still take their peanut butter sandwiches. The only ones that get a payoff is the guy marching them around, who most of the time in secret got a 501c3, wearing a nice suit too, at your expense. You know what I mean? And 90% of them are 32-degree Masons, with a Moorish fez pretending they don't know that they're Moorish and you're Moorish. However, that's another story, but let's get back to some things of what's really happening to you. So I'm going to ask questions. Now I know most of you already have pretty much a knowledge of what's really up. But I'm going to ask for those who do not know, see where you are so that we can talk loosely. And feel free to write down some questions. Make them clear. Doesn't matter what the question is, just write it down. And see if we can clarify things, all right? So that you can take this information home to your families. And also, when you know this history, leader guys can't play you anymore. This is why a lot of people don't like this information also. Because you know, like everybody likes to be a leader guy, go in the community with a problem in the community, want to have rallies and meetings and stuff, and you start asking them serious questions, and they're always putting it off, but we're going to pray on it and all that stuff, when they know exactly what is happening to you, but they don't want to go there, because the club might get closed down, whatever. So write down some questions. How many of you know about the kingship oligarchy that was set up by the Act of Congress 1871? Raise your hand. I want you all to look around the room. Look around the room. But I want to remind you, Dr. Naila, our conversation past week, it was actually a week and a half now, right? Maybe, yeah, week and a half.
Past week.
Oh, past week. Why some things must be redundant. There's so many things that we can talk about, but what good is it to talk about a subject matter when the people don't even know the root of the problem? It's sort of like, let's stop talking about cutting off the leaves of the poison ivy in the yard that keep contaminating your children. Let's talk about shovels and digging up the roots to the poison ivy. You don't have to keep on having somebody coming in with hazmat suits cutting every year. Now this is it. So now you all looked around the room and remember we're all grown, right? So in the world of reality and world of social engineering, world of social politics, world of government, world where people are paying taxes to entities they don't even know who they're paying taxes to. Taxes are a burden on them, even far beyond what they possess, and always threatens to remove what they think they possess. They don't know what mortgages are. They don't know what it means dead pledge. The contract's dead, dare to pledge. They don't understand what a notarial title is, never heard of it. But for the most part, they got multiple organizations that deal with the symptoms. Marching, praying, keeping hope alive, Color Coalition, Somali's Coalition, P on me, we, and all that stuff. Meanwhile, no solutions, right? But meanwhile, the leader guys always got nice cars, airplane flights, beautiful suits, and the BS continues. This is where your problem is. We're not going to go into it totally, but we're going to give you a synopsis. And the reason I asked you, are you aware of the kingship oligarchy and the Act of Congress 1871? Because that is not the beginning, but that is one of the major foundation landmark activities that took place in the Western Hemisphere to institutionalize your servitude and your peonage that you're experiencing today on all levels. Are we clear? This is the foundation of what later sets up the platform for the Jesuit order to rob you under the unum sanctum policy, the doctrine of discovery, etc., which becomes the Inquisition Revenue Services, which is called the Internal Revenue Service. And also the Federal Reserve, which is the platform for the dark Jesuit order, with directives and slush funds for the payoff of their quote-unquote Negro and black leader guys to keep you in a state of passive obedience while you get screwed. It's not an opinion, researchable fact. Point is that all scholars already know this. So when people are walking around having you burn your energy talking about we got to make somebody understand that we're somebody and all this stuff, it's a diversion. It's a diversionary argument. When they're sitting around talking about let us pray on it, no, you're being preyed upon. It's P-R-E-Y, and you got no A in it. And it's been going on forever. So here is a synopsis of your thoughts of what's going on for anyone, listen to me, anyone who's in any leadership in any structure called government or organization where they have an implied or actual alleged authority over you. Are we clear? Whenever that is breached, it's called breach of trust. Are we clear? They're supposed to be removed from their seat. It's not supposed to be a discussion. We ain't supposed to talk over dinner. They're supposed to be removed from that seat. Are we clear?
Islam.
Now, this is with an unbiased analysis and with modus operandi considerations about the United States Congress's adjourning Sina D, which is a coup d'etat of May the 10th of 1861. And we must understand that these misprision actors held for themselves the predetermined intent to commit and to institutionalize their breach of trust operations. Now, their political platform manifested as a kingship oligarchy. This platform is known as the Act of Congress 1871. Now, what is the password or passphrase that's used by the kingship oligarchy that they teach in schools, churches, and in society? That is the signal of the kingship oligarchy. Anybody know? Raise your hand and speak. Anybody?
Jesus.
Oh no, that's one of the passwords. To calm them down, preparing them for rapery without qualification.
Democracy.
That's it, U.S. democracy. That's the password, that's the code word for the kingship oligarchy. All right? It is actually is an impostorship. It's an impostorship platform. All right? The platform which was overthrown is the republic that comes at Article 4, Section 4 of the American Constitution, coming from Muslim law, which Obama mentioned to you when he went to Egypt. And when Michelle went to the Alhambra, which is the Red House, which fell in 1492, which has much to do with this setup here, right there. All right, now keep in mind, all scholars know this. So this is not deep research. So if you're not familiar with this, don't think that you gotta start reading metaphysically into this. This is basic high school education. It's just that it would not be in your standard school books. Are we clear?
Yeah.
But you'll find it in any library. All right? Now, anyone who's in any particular secret society would directly get this information. Anyone who's brought into government structure would be directly given this information. Are we clear? Anyone who's in any Masonic order, Eastern Star, Knights Templar, Knights Columbus, Daughter of American Revolution, Daughter of ISIS, Knights of Columbus, Illuminati, Thule Society, any of these secret societies would be given this information directly because they must know the history to qualify to govern. Are we clear? Also, to qualify for their titles. Also, to make sure that they don't fall victim to their emotions and start doing moral things to help humanity when this platform was set up to rob us. Are we clear?
Yes.
So it's never talked about publicly. Go ahead again. Get in the mic.
Does that
Get in the
also
mic.
include sororities and fraternities?
Yes.
Say no?
You're being prepared for that. If you're in a sorority or fraternity, they're preparing you. They'll give you basically codes in Greek, which is really doesn't exist. It's really Hikupta, which is also codified as Egyptian. All right? To prepare you for the Kabbalistic knowledge or foundation culture on Earth planet. All right? Now, most people who are prepared for other power positions in generally, doesn't always work that way. They're usually prepared that early. And then they're watched, you're brought into other degrees according to how you develop. Meaning that 90% of the people that you see in power positions were chosen before they even thought about being there. There is no president that operates at the North Gate that was elected by the people, not one. They were assigned, many of them before they even held office. And all of them are Masons or Eastern Stars. Daughters of ISIS, Daughter of American Revolution, it's guaranteed. And all of them have an allegiance to the Pope, not to Jesus. So just get that out of your head. You know, now and all of us rooted in this too. They're operating in North America. And this is why when this information is shared with people who haven't paid thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of notes for these degrees, which would be codified, put in allegorical stories, signs, and symbols, and then they take death oaths not to reveal it. That's why they get uncomfortable when this information is given to common people freely, because it frees them from the priesthood, which is really the demon. How about that? Anyway, so let's just read this part here so you understand how to look at anyone who's any leadership position that's governing people's lives, whether it's in the federal government, alleged federal government, state governments, alleged state government, municipal governments, alleged municipal government, local government, alleged local government, organizations, alleged presidents, secretaries, board of trustees, etc. Names are changed, but the fundamental structures are the same. This principle applies. Are we clear? If you do not use caveat emptor in relationship to organized structure and honor and integrity, it will collapse from within. Are we clear? And corruption creeps in. That's why you have constitutions and bylaws all over the planet. That's why they exist. Failure to enforce them, you pay a price, and it usually is what they call servitude. When you see the signs, recognize this was up. So, breach of trust. Breach of trust is any act done by a trustee contrary to the terms of his trust or in excess of his authority and to the detriment of the trust. Such a breach also consists of the wrongful omission of any act required of him by the terms of the trust. A breach also involves the wrongful misappropriation by a trustee of any funds, duties, or property which had been lawfully committed to him in a fiduciary character. Every violation by a trustee of a duty which equity lays upon him, whether willful and fraudulent or done through negligence or arising through mere oversight or forgetfulness, is a breach of trust. Breach of trust, therefore, includes every omission and commission in carrying out the trust according to its terms of care and diligence in carrying out the trust according to its terms, and of care and diligence in protecting and investing the trust property. And all trust duties, responsibilities must be carried out using perfect good faith. I repeat, perfect good faith. Therefore, breach of trust is any violation of any duty which the trustee owes to the beneficiary. Obvious breach of trust activities were committed by, demonstrated by, and promoted by the de facto corporate, quote-unquote, President Woodrow Wilson, and by all and any other actors, public servants or public officers acting in support of the breaches committed by him. Those other public servants who failed or who have been failing to take such lawful measures as the American Constitution provides to check or to stop or to impeach Wilson or to seize and to arrest any other actors who committed any such breaches against the American Constitution are guilty by negligence or by association. Keep in mind that their official oaths to support the Constitution by which they are bound by official oath to support. Of particular note, one should see, examine, and refer to the unconstitutional establishment of the Federal Reserve and the founding of B'nai B'rith. Also take note of the obscure invocation of the Inquisition Revenue Services, which was and is hidden Inquisition Unum Sanctum Agenda and War Extortion Tool, which was deceptively styled as the Internal Revenue Service, 1913 to 1916. And all such unconstitutionally constructed or enacted and latest activities constitute constitutional blasphemy. Write that down, get familiar with it. You're going to use it in your correspondence with any public servant or person who claims to be public servants that violates any due process or any format whatsoever. Are we clear? Including admitting that they are the U.S. democracy and then exercising powers of the seats of government, which is a breach in itself. So constitutional blasphemy was further institutionalized amongst the rogue operatives in the U.S. government by concocting the colorable legislation that brought about the Gold Act and the Trading with the Enemy Act. Those are subject matters within themselves. You can study them in your own time, get used to them. You need to know the games that have been played constantly to counter the restoration of your birthright, which was set forth in the old Canaanite temple by Novadrale. These have been counter moves to counter him. Are we clear? So once you understand what's been used to rob you, you yourself can start taking responsibility to do what? Speak up for yourself.
Islam.
Defend the Prophet and the Moorish divine national movement, which is the restoration of your lost estate. But you got to know what your estate is before you can defend. You can't defend what you don't know. Because it's not just a statement, it is a fact. So if you don't know what you're dealing with, you're just talking of blowing wind. And someone who's robbing you can come at you from a different angle and immediately see that you don't know what you're talking about, at which time you will be declared incompetent. And this is what they've been doing to our people. But it's only unfortunate that that takes place because people who should have been teaching them have actually been robbing them, keeping the information for themselves, and then getting a 501c3 kickback to keep silent. Are we clear?
Clear.
So I'm exposing to you this so that you can understand why the reversioner statement that we're going to go into is presented. Now keep this in mind that for those who don't know, this is a question to the floor, because we've been over this quite a few times, you all. Now, many of you already know, but for those who do not know, what year were the allodial titles of the people of the land, protected by Constitution and treaty, converted from allodial titles and aboriginal titles into mortgages and deeds? What year was that?
1913.
Yes, 1913. All right, so you already know what year, another question. What year did Noble Ali set up the old Canaanite temple?
1913.
Y'all gotta say it a little louder, man.
1913.
Is there circumstances in the correlation of those years?
Yes.
Yes.
Count.
Exactly what it is. It's not circumstantial, it's a counteract. It's an enforcement of unum sanctum policy as a countermeasure to Noble Drawley commanding the Queen of England under her secret treaty of Verona being the middle party of the District of London in the secret treaty of Verona to the Popes of Rome, operating through their colony operations of the United States Corporation Company that had been posturing as a country falsely and stealing the birthright of the Moors. Commanding that the Queen of England stop using the brand which made the people non-descendable in law by which the corporate states have been stealing their estate, and this was the platform that was set up to continue these activities, etc. So it was necessary for them, from a political and a war measure, to counter Noble Drawley, and so they sold the government platform seats to the Jesuit order off Jekyll Island off Georgia. And you've been under a reinforcement of an already dispelled platform which was set forth in 1871. Are we clear?
Clear.
You have later reinforcement with Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 33 after they got rid of Noble Drawley. And that's when they had the fake bank holiday. And so all of these things are related to the restoration of the lost estate. And so you need to know this history in order to understand why, amongst other issues, now there's spiritual reasons why, but then there's direct political, social, political, economic reasons why Noble Drawley set up the old Canaanite temple in 1913 officially, although the work had started actually 3 years prior to that. That was the official founding of the Moorish Divine and National Movement in what you call a public venue, which is the old Canaanite temple, 1913. Are we clear?
Clear.
It is a counter move to this, because this is institutionalizing the platform of servitude. Are we clear?
Clear.
This is a reinforcement period. Are we clear?
Clear.
All right. And so, when you're conscious of what's being done to you, it's automatic that you're conscious of that you would speak up. Keep this in mind in trust law, in estate law. If the heirs or beneficiaries of an estate demonstrate incompetence, they're not descendable. Are we clear?
Clear.
If the heirs of an estate are in dishonor to their mothers and their fathers, they're not heritable. Are we clear?
Clear.
So you understand the reasons why the brands Negro, Black, and Color have functioned on an heirship basis, not just on an etymological basis, on an heirship basis. And now you understand too why persons of quote-unquote color are declared wards of the state. Being wards of the state, they're not descendable. Therefore, the Queen of England still controls their birthright and their estate via the United States Corporation Company, who they themselves, the common people, who have been falsely calling a country, which gives them legal sanction from a beneficiary to a trustee, even though the administrators of the trust are absolutely and thoroughly corrupt. Are we clear?
Clear.
Therefore, you must know the truth about your nationality and your birthright, and how it was stolen, and how it's administered to this day. If you do not have a comprehension of what happened past before you were born in the physical, this time, you do not know how to counter. And this is what they're counting on, that those who know will not tell you. Are we clear? Now, some of the people started figuring this stuff out, and some people started being honest. And so, as a counter move, they say, well, now they'll give them a 501c4. You know, but the game continues. But the deal of it is, all grand sheiks, assistant grand sheiks of the Moorish Science Temple of America, which is the last corporate name given to the Moorish Divine and National operations of the Moorish Temple of Science, which was a civic organization registered by Noble Drali in 1925. The last year of Prophet Noble Drali's life, with the infiltration of the Moorish Divine National Movement, he adopted a religious affidavit to counter the infiltrators. And he lived 1 year. And that's the corporate name of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science. So the Moorish Science Temple of America is the corporate name for Moorish Holy Temple of Science, which is uncorporated. Are we clear?
Clear.
Which you'll see on the back of the questionnaire. Go ahead, good brother.
So with that, by you saying.
Give him a mic. We want you to make sure that's.
So just for the record, when you say that Moorish Science Temple of America is its corporate name, or the corporate name for the Moorish Holy Temple of Science,
Yes.
does that denote as well that that's how the Moorish Science Temple of America interfaces and able to be able to do
Yes.
commerce for the people?
Now, through Heard's Law, now, once you understand what a religious affidavit is, a religious affidavit under Heard's Law, or under international principle, is really designed to set a platform by which all members, people come from different walks of life, can preserve their property, which is under attack. So therefore, a trust must exist for them, because they don't necessarily understand. They have, you know, like when you come in involved in something, you're learning, but you're also naive. So those who set it up put things in place to protect you while you're learning, because you don't have time to protect yourself from people who are enemies to the cause. So he adopted a religious affidavit. Under Heard's Law, it actually means law, order, and governmental principles. It got nothing to do with worshiping. However, it doesn't conflict with people who think it is. But in due time, they will learn. Are we clear?
Clear.
All right. Now, and so most people who really aren't scholars think the Moorish Science Temple was founded in 1913. It was not. Moorish Science Temple was not founded. It was an adopted name for the Moorish Temple of Science in 1928. A year later, they assassinated him. Are we clear?
Clear.
Nevertheless, the United States Corporation Company that he bankrupted by the operations of the old Canine Temple collapsed anyway. So to know the history, let's talk the history. I'm not going to get into this, but I'm going to give you landmark pieces of information to understand the politics at North America. 1860, Abraham Lincoln bankrupted the United States Corporation Company, which was registered in France by Benjamin Franklin in the year 1754, which platform he was run on. Are we clear? Because being a barrister, a lawyer, he could not hold directly the office of the Republic because it's against fatwa, Moorish law, since the American Constitution comes from Muslim law. Are we clear? Upon recognizing that they were using him to undermine the Republic, Lincoln bankrupted that United States Corporation Company in 1860. Are we clear? 1861, the Congress plotted and did a coup d'etat. They'll write it in history as the Congress adjourning sine die. That's May 10th of 1861. 10-year platform, they perfected their platform. 1871, and that's the act of Congress, and they set up their kingship oligarchy while still pretending to be operating for the republic. That's where your shadow government begins. That's where the whole foundation of the fraud begins that you've been dealing with ever since then, and they've been imposturing ever since. Are we clear?
Clear.
It is administered of the Moorish Empire, and for those also other scholars, you look up the Berlin Conference of 1884, 1885, and the Constantinian nations were meeting and dividing up the Moorish Empire amongst themselves. Are we clear?
Yeah.
All right, you can come up to Treaty of Versailles dealing with Germany, etc. These are reference points so you can do world history research, and you'll begin to understand more clearly the Moorish Dividing National Movement, and also why Nobudrali makes mention of the First World War, Second World War, stuff like that. The First World War, when he makes reference in certain instruction, because it is absolutely tied to you, whether you don't understand it or not. Are we clear? But that's your side research. Are we clear?
Clear.
But understand, the point that I'm making to you is that when you, any of you, get the weak idea that scholars and politicians and people in positions of power do not know your real history, you've made a sore mistake. And when they play dumb with you, talking in riddles, when you ask really serious questions, and they try to get all metaphysical with you, it's not right time, it's not so really, you don't listen to them because they're trying to eat your peanut butter sandwiches, you understand? But when you think they do not understand, I'm giving you this information so all scholars know this, all politicians know this, anybody with titles know this, they must know this knowledge to get their titles. Are we clear?
Clear.
Anyone in any organized school of scholarship around the world must produce literature, and the people must see that literature before they take that title. Are we clear? Clear. Got any leader guys, leader girls in any organizations that have not produced literature and they run around Reverend this, Reverend that, and Grand and Chief this and Grand Chief is that, and you haven't met their literature, you make the determination. I won't tell you, but I tell you this, they're in violation of that title. In order to change people, you must change their literature. First rule of any professor, any PhD, is to produce literature. You meet their literature before you meet them. Are we clear?
Clear.
And it must be available to the public for cross-examination. Both supporters and enemies alike. Are we clear?
Clear.
All over the world, any university, any scholarship, any community, no matter where it is on the planet. Are we clear?
Clear.
And one of the things that they have set up in our so-called communities that has been injuring our people is that we have allowed people having titles to do that to us without challenging them. And they have taken control of your different organizations and are actually there fleecing you. Or they're there holding you up or got you on a treadmill and you think that they love you because they're sitting around talking about racism and colors and, Hotep and stuff like that. And it really, they're raping you. Do not take it personal. That's a breach of trust. Are we clear?
Clear.
All over the world. And if you're not willing to take a stand and start protecting your children, they call it consent. You want to keep sacrificing your babies? And this is why this BS continues to this generation now. Are we clear?
Clear.
The reason you're sitting in this room because it's being appealed to you to help stop that cycle. Are we clear?
Clear.
Clear.
And to do something about it. You don't have to get angry, get wise. You understand? Don't get mad, get active. Passive people are enemies to the cause. Are we clear?
Yes. Clear.
Passive people are the major ones they look to sell out, because they usually do. In other words, they'll take a few pieces of coins and then sell their people out, but they control the organizations, and people admire them because they, do the chandelier thing, got nice suits on and all that stuff. Would you trust those suckers? Anyway, just as a synopsis, this is United States Code of Law, Title 8, Corporations, Banking Power Denied. So y'all keep this in mind whenever y'all have any issues with any of these so-called persons that claim to be bank authorities. United States Code of Law, Title 8, Corporations, subsection 126, Banking Power Denied. A, no corporation organized under this chapter shall possess the power of issuing bills, notes, or other evidences of debt for circulation as money, or the power of carrying on the business of receiving deposits of money. B, corporations organized under this chapter to buy, sell, and otherwise deal in notes, open accounts, and other similar evidences of debt, or to loan money, and to take notes upon accounts and other similar evidences of debt as collateral security, therefore shall not be deemed to be engaging in the business of banking. Are we clear? That's law. So use it when they're coming at you trying to steal your stuff. Talking about you got debt that don't damn exist. Title 18, United States Code. Subsection 473, dealing in counterfeit obligations or securities. Whoever buys, sells, exchanges, transfers, receives, or delivers any false, forged, counterfeit, or altered obligation or other security of the United States with the intent that the same be passed, published, or used as true and genuine shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. Now that's your court cases. Now the reason why you don't see anything taking place, that's why they set up that platform, because it's corrupt from top to bottom and the kickbacks are in order. From the bench right down to the neighborhood Negro 501c3 kickback. That's why you don't get any due process in court, and this is why they've been coming stealing your houses and with false credit statements and doing all kind of crap to you, and you wonder why there's no due process. Because who you thought was a judge is really a deputy knight for the Pope of Rome. Are we clear?
Clear.
That's their platform. That's why they set up the platform to make it available for them to do that. In other words, the U.S. democracy was literally set up as a kingship oligarchy, and they were trained to pretend to be government since 1861. That's the theft of your birthright. Are we clear? Give him a mic.
Taj.
Yes.
We're talking about these positions and what these people are doing. And I could use a little cleaning up on it myself. I'm sort of understanding pretty well.
Get in the mic, please.
But could we talk a little bit about the dang it, I'm in brain dead.
Stay in the mic so we can hear you.
Oh, nobility clauses is what I'm.
Yeah, the nobility clause.
Because you're talking about these judges and these presidents.
And now listen to this.
Okay.
And a good statement, but what we want to all do is start correcting our language. Because when you call him judge or her judge, you just assign them.
Mm-hmm.
Always call them acting as.
Yes.
Or you call them, and always refer to the name of the being, then put the title after it, never before. Being an heir to the estate is taken as a trust statement. And although the intention of what you're saying is accepted, you've actually assigned them. So anything you say to the counter thereafter challenging the jurisdiction is neutered because you yourself neuter it. Okay. This is, again, why we have to train our people in contract law and have to train our people their history so that they don't keep giving title to people who are really there to rob them. Are we clear?
Yeah.
They're actually private deputy knights for the Jesuit order. So, like, as an example, if Joe Pulaski sends out commercial mercenaries from the gangs of New York that were started in Harlem to attack us, who have been on the streets claiming to be policemen, understand that they're commercial mercenaries. Never call them peace officers, because they're not. If you call them peace officer, you just authorize them. Are we clear?
Clear.
If you're under threat, duress, and coercion forced into one of those human trafficking venues, because there are no lawful courts on the land of North America since 1879. 1789, the same year that George was appointed. There really haven't been any lawful courts since then. Because George Washington converted all of our estates into the states. That's where the states come from. They're really Moorish estates.
So what's that year?
1789.
1789, okay.
And this is also why the COINTEL cooperatives amongst us are trained to tell our children that he was the first president when they secretly, with their 501c3, know he was the ninth. To hide the other history.
Yeah,
This is another reason why they have their Moorish fez in secret and they pin the tassel down. Great.
When it comes to,
Give them the mic, please. Up.
you said,
The 1789, the last lawful venue, is that evidence in the letter to the Sultan of Morocco from?
No, that's not evidence in the letter.
Okay.
What's evidence in the letter is his position and their subordinate position.
Okay.
All right. Now, back to the origin of your question. Now, repeat it because I want to address that, but I wanted to throw that in. So, continuity for the tape. Go ahead.
when we know that, like.
The nobility clause.
Judges, yeah, that's what I'm.
Yeah, the nobility
It's
clause.
supposed to be about these.
Now, keep in mind, the nobility clause is removed from the public, what all scholars, all teachers know it. Anybody in secret society know it. Now, that would be, let me give you a little bit of it.
Okay. Because I thought up to that point, everybody was still legit.
Too legit to quit.
Let me see this here.
if I may ask, because we have a brother too.
Say it again?
If I may ask, because we have a brother too in the feed who is being very strategic, making sure he's typing what you're saying, and it's the stenographic way, Brother El Moor Day. So could you have for the record what is evidence also, or like what documentation specifically will we be able to see in 1789 that the last lawful venue that we had was that?
Congressional records. So this is for everybody. Get in the habit of researching congressional records, because the things that take place in the platform of the alleged Congress will find you'll have these things. They will try to sometimes block it, as people are beginning to learn, but you will find that and you'll find more. Also, go to historical societies, and you can ask most librarians, and they'll direct you to this information. You're just not going to get it generally public. And then those of you who may have people in your families who, I doubt they'll tell you, who are Masons or Eastern Stars, they might tell you, but they'll tell you in a gibberish form. Because they got defos. They got the feds, but they're not going to explain to you the universal nature of that tierra sol, crown of the sun, that belongs to you.
Islam.
And this is back to why, again, Drawley set up the old Canaanite temple, which has become the Moorish Temple of Science, the Moorish Science Temple of America, to set a platform for the truth to be delivered to the common people. And this is also why he says, I pull the wool off of all secret organizations. Now you have no more excuses. Now, anyone that's a sheik or grand sheik know that they're supposed to take this information to the four corners of the world, to all nations. They're supposed to be hitting the hedges and the highways. This stuff should be common knowledge. Unfortunately, I don't have to tell you about COINTEL operations with J. Edgar Hoover and Calvin Coolidge, etc. It is evident for anyone that does any research. For those of you, many of you already know who are scholars, look up the FBI papers, Infiltration of the Moorish Science Temple of America. You can go look up history of American religions, and you can see the sellout, part of the sellout with the break off of the Moorish Science Temple, and then comes out of it, the Moorish, the Temple of Islam and other organizations, they document it. You know, so for any questions like that, I'm giving you sources, patterns, go ahead and look it up, you'll find it for yourself. Including, and this is another reason why we remind people of the demo platform that was set up in 1871, which is the Act of Congress 1871, because it'll lead you to the rest of the fraud. But the major thing that, and it's like this, it's almost like kind of difficult, not because it's really difficult, but people have difficulty receiving this information because they think that the people that they're dealing with every day in the name of government is indeed their government.
Yeah.
They don't know that they're actually criminals, organized criminals, and slaveholders. And part of their safety is that the people believe that they are who they are not when they've actually traded places with you. You know, and your Negro marching, praying, keep hope alive, Negro leaders are all Masons, and they get paid off to keep that Negro-colored 14th Amendment march around the corner, civil rights crap going on while pretending that that is the solution to your problems, knowing that it makes you stock registered on 55 Water Street, New York, and on the stock market, including marriage certificates and birth certificates are all bank bonds. And even those guys that be throwing rice in your face talking about, he's just talking to the Lord and stuff, knowing that it's a bank bond delivered to the popes of Rome through the Jesuits, with the help of their minions called Reverend guys, Pastor Pigfoot.
Creflo Dollar.
That's the real truth, uncomfortable truth, what it is, what it was, what it always is, and it's up to you to fix it. Or you can keep on selling your babies out if you want to. Plus, they rape them and need them anyway.
Eddie
By
Long.
the time y'all stop faking it. And half these burgers, if you did any research in all of these burger houses, got human DNA in it. 'Cause
Yep.
that's where all the aborted babies go, including missing children. And that's the absolute truth, like it or not. Now, Trio, let's go here. These,
Somebody has a question for you too.
yeah, hold it for a minute.
Okay.
First, I want to go to the 13th, excuse me, just for a minute, please. This is the letter. This is part of the letter from George, but this is the preamble to the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. And you notice that Obama went into the Tripoli section when he went to Egypt. Now, to all persons, now this Treaty of Peace and Friendship, 1786, 1787, keep in mind, Ordinance of 1787, the decision on how the government was to be run here. Then 1788, the Constitution was ratified. 1789, it was finalized. George Washington was appointed. He was not elected. All right? The Republican Forum platform was set up in 81. All right? Now, to all persons to whom these presents shall come or be made known, whereas the United States of America in Congress assembled by their commission bearing date the 12th day of May 1784, thought proper to constitute John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson their ministers plenipotentiary. This is where you get potentate masonry from. All right? Giving to them, or a majority of them, full powers to confer, treat, and negotiate with the ambassador, minister, or commissioner of His Majesty, the Emperor of Morocco, concerning the treaty of amity and commerce, to make and receive propositions for such treaty, and to conclude and sign the same, transmitting to the United States in Congress assembled for their final ratification. And by one other commission bearing date the 11th day of March 1785, did further empower the said ministers plenipotentiary, or a majority of them, by writing under the hands and seals to appoint such agent in the said business as they might think proper, with authority under the directions and instructions of the ministers to commence to prosecute the said negotiations and conferences for the said treaty, provided that the said treaty shall be signed by ministers. And whereas we, the said John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, two of the said ministers plenipotentiary, the said Benjamin Franklin being absent, by writing under the hand and seal of said John Adams at London, October the 5th, 1785, and of the said Thomas Jefferson at Paris, October the 11th of the same year, did appoint Thomas Barclay agent in the business, aforesaid, giving him the powers therein, which by the said second commission, we, hold on, it's out of sequence, hold on. I want you to see that part. I don't want to go into that, but I want to show you who the founding fathers, who you think is founding fathers, were really ministers plenipotentiary under the protection of Sidi Muhammad, and that their position was subordinate. They're not the founders. You are. That's part of your hidden history. That's what all Masons know, and that's what all your scholars know. But they will never teach this except amongst adepts. Because all orders have adepts, are we clear? Adept simply means expert, are we clear? They're all PhDs. Anybody with a title is a PhD. Once they're minister, imam, rabbi, mason, they're all high priests, and they're all PhDs, are we clear? If they got a title, they're PhD, they mean doctor of philosophy. Anything that they dealing with people, they must have a background to know what's up. And it doesn't change, it doesn't pass away. They may have different political agendas, and therefore they may hide certain things from you. So if you're not familiar with what you just heard, understand it's only because people who knew it held it back from you, got you marching and praying all around while they're raping you. Are we clear?
Yeah.
But I wanted you to hear that part to let you understand that the foundation of these operations of government at North America is not what you've been told. Are we clear?
Clear.
Now, I'm going to go here, hold on. I want to show you also, now this is the beginning of, say, the letter from George Washington. As you can see, City of New York, December 1st, 1789, right? So you see George Washington in his Masonic garb. And who's this letter to? Now keep in mind, he was placed into that office April the 30th of that same year. So how long was he sitting in the seat? Only a matter of roughly around 7 months. Are we clear? Now, we're not going to go into this because it's not the subject matter. I'm going into the nobility. But I want you to see this. This is George Washington's letter to the Sultan. Since the date of the letter, which the late Congress, by their president, addressed to your Imperial Majesty, the United States of America, have thought proper to change their government and institute a new one, agreeable to the Constitution, of which I have the honor herewith to enclose a copy. So as you can see, in his first line, he wasn't the first president. They've been getting away with miseducation, but all scholars know this. All adepts know this. All grand sheiks and sheikesses know this. How come they're not teaching the people? Because they're not trying to bring these people back into the constitutional fold of government. They're keeping them out of it and getting paid while doing it. That's called the great sellout that nobody wants to talk about. You hear that phrase, but they won't give you details. I'm giving you details. You do the rest of the research yourself. That's why you're here. All right? But let's go to the nobility clause. I want to go to a letter. We're going to get into citizenship. And I want to go to the secretary during a period of time. Here we go. Now, this is also in German Synodea. This is directly from congressional records as it's printed. I just interjected this in the treaty book for those of you who already have this, because I know the scholars on our side will be trying to counter this, telling you that Taji guy made this stuff up and he's creating a bunch of confusion because they don't want you to have this information because it'll prove to you that they're co-cooperatives. Just go to the congressional records yourself. So I'm directing you to go to it. I'm not going to tell you, I'm directing you to go to it. Are we clear?
Clear.
So you find out Taji guy ain't just saying it. Now, this is also print directly from the congressional records. In other words, I could retype this. I took it directly from Washington, D.C., from the Congress, from the House of Representatives, the direct notes. Are we clear?
Clear.
This is section 1. See below are the original sections of the 13th Amendment from the pages of the congressional records. Are we clear? Well, let's just go to number 12 right here. And this is for all these leader guys keep telling you that you're U.S. citizens. See number 12 there, y'all?
Yes.
The traffic in slaves with Africa is hereby forever prohibited on pain of death, and the forfeiture of all the rights and property of persons engaged therein. And the descendants of Africans shall not be citizens. Does that need interpretation, y'all?
None whatsoever.
Clear.
You all need interpretation?
None.
Clear.
How come you don't see that in school? And when they told you they're U.S. citizens, but they're saying that U.S. stock on the stock market, and the leaders or overseers is keeping you marching around with that promise, thinking that you're going to get some special privileges, and they get a kickback in the background to keep you in that state of mind, when actually you're supposed to hold them to the Constitution and Treaty, of which you're the superior party. Back to George Washington's letter. So I just want to go there to give you concept, and also give you concept on why Drawley say every temple must have a school, because you can't give this kind of information on a regular outreach platform. So don't expect to find this on the platform of the temples, because the temples an outreach. You understand? Expect to find it in the school and in the literature that will be handed to you. Unfortunately, when they was undermining Drawley, the first thing that they did when they got Drawley out of the way was to tear down the printing press. He had 2 major houses where he had printing presses with the Moorish guide, etc., and they tore it down and junked it. And all these grand sheiks and sheikesses that keep claiming to love Noble Drawley, you notice that nobody got any funds together to restart that press. When Drawley said, our press is the most powerful weapon in the hand of our group today. See if you go find it somewhere, anywhere in the country where they're claiming to love the prophet. They will attack anyone else who produces literature. That's what they'll do. Not to be confused, there ain't nothing wrong with the temple, so don't mistake what I'm telling you. The temple's right. It's for you to start doing some research and seeing that they've been infiltrated. And you can't protect the prophet and the movement if you don't admit that something's broke. If you don't have the courage, do it for the children. Give them a future that many of us have denied ourselves. This is congressional record, so don't be out to lunch and don't be intimidated. Deal with knowledge, and it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to eat your brains out, and it's not going to shape-shift on you. People are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Now I want to also take you to the congressional records, and I want you to see here. And see, this is a letter from the Secretary of State. Now notice this is of August of 1906. Now I want you to see this for the purpose of concepts. Are we clear? Now you see the pages right there?
Yeah.
And the reason I kept this directly from the congressional records rather than typing it over to make it more readable, because when I started publishing this stuff years ago in 92, 96, and then when we published the Isle of Rock and Star in 2001, the attackers weren't Europeans. The attackers were grand sheiks and sheikesses from the Moorish Science Temple of America. That's who was attacking us. This is documented. This is not my opinion. Are we clear?
Clear.
Now I want you to see that this is no new argument. Look at this. Citizenship of the United States, expatriation, etc. 459. Chapter 4, temporary provisions. United States. What word do you see there underneath that line?
Morocco.
Can you say it again?
Morocco.
Okay, say it one more time, y'all.
Morocco.
So when these people act like they don't know there's a relationship of where the United States is operating, there's your documents. Mr. Phillip charged the affairs to Mr. Root, Secretary of State, August 3rd, 1906, American Legation, Tangier. Now when you see that, keep in mind chapter 47 in Circle Quran that the Prophet prepared for us, all right? Sir, there are strictly speaking no Moroccan laws relating to citizenship of Moorish subjects in Morocco. The fundamental laws of this non-Christian country, see what Obama was talking about when he was in Egypt?
Clear.
These people think this is a Christian country, don't they?
Yes.
Don't they tell you that? They tell your children that? Are based entirely upon the Islamic code, no part of which treats of the subject of citizenship. Hold on. Page 460, citizenship of the United States, expatriation, etc. There are, however, numerous treaties and conventions between the various Christian countries. So, is that talking about religion?
No.
Christian countries and the Moorish Empire. How come everybody act like they don't know what we talk about when we talk about the Moorish Empire? I want you, this is the record. And the Moorish Empire, by means of which citizenship in this country is defined. But as I understand from the above acknowledged instructions that it is not the desire of the department to call for a report upon such lines, means they don't want to get deep into it. Would you already understand why? I will therefore confine these remarks to general conditions existing, which may possibly be of some use in connection with the information desired. And pay attention to these following presentments by the Secretary of State. 1. Citizenship in Morocco may be said to be governed by the laws pertaining to the same in other countries, with the exception that all persons residing in Morocco who cannot prove foreign citizenship or protection are considered ipso jure as Moorish subjects. That means you got to prove that you're not Moorish. Do you need a nationality card for that?
Nope.
How come everybody keeps playing dumb? And how come other people keep trying to tell you you're not Moor unless you get a nationality card that they sell you?
It's gonna cost you 5 days.
Then you understand why Drew said, be careful, Moor, some of your own brothers and sisters will be trying to put you back into slavery. And he's telling you it's a birthright, because it's a bloodline. It's an inherited right. It has nothing to do with belief. Now pay attention to 2 and 3, it's very important. 2 and 3, Moorish subjects lost their nationality only by becoming naturalized. That's 14th Amendment.
Wow.
Naturalized in or protected by another country having treaty relations with the Moorish Empire. You see the relationship? Now they're administering over your estate, your lost estate. Now you understand why Drew Ali is doing the work he's doing, you all, to restore your lost estate. Why he says if you don't do anything else, declare your nationality. Because if that's not done, the estate is gone. There's nothing else that can be done. That's why I say if you can't tell these people that they're not Negro, black, or colored, there's no need to tell them anything else. That's not mere opinion, it's based on the fact of what's really going on. So you need to know history and law to understand why you're sitting in that seat now. Are we clear?
Clear.
To know why you go to the Moorish Science Temple of America and know what their obligation is to tell you these things so that you don't get spooked up. You're dealing on knowledge and fact, not on spookiness. Are we clear?
Clear.
Nor idol God worship. Are we clear?
Clear.
And without your legal, lawful standing and status, you have no wealth nor estate. Are we clear?
Clear.
So anyway, so 2 and 3, Moorish subjects lost their nationality only by becoming naturalized or protected by another country having treaty relations with the Moorish Empire. So now you see the relationship of that letter with George Washington, and why George Washington is accredited with converting the estates into the states, and thus called the father of the country. He's talking about the corporate country that Lincoln bankrupted in 1860, that has been shadowed as the nation ever since. That's the fiction of the alleged but false national debt since then. That's what the national debt argument is, and it doesn't exist. They're putting it on you, and you've been registered at 55 Water Street, and they've been backing U.S. bonds on your back since 1861. That's the source of your economic problems. Are we clear?
Yeah.
It ain't got nothing to do with no belief. It ain't got nothing to do with you Baptist, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, atheist, sandwich guy, Pee Wee Herman. It's got to do with you not knowing your history or your birthright. So therefore you must know about your nationality and birthright for you to be inspired to do something about restoring it. You will restore with knowledge, not with emotionalism. Are we clear?
Clear.
And you have this knowledge, keep this in mind. All your leaders got this knowledge. Why they don't teach this? Because they lose their power. You would see half of them are unqualified to be in them seats. And they've been taking your finance and got you on a social treadmill for years, sliding your feet, going nowhere, and don't even know what happened to you. This is what happened to you. This is why Drawley said the 14th and 15th Amendment is not necessary for the salvation of my people and citizens. Therefore, divine warning by the prophet for the nation and the message to America. Are we clear?
Clear.
These are synopsis information I'm giving you. I don't want to get in deep into any of these things necessarily, but I'm giving you pieces where you can go and liberate yourself.
Yes.
And that's why you hear me always say, don't accept what I say, research it. Do you understand?
Yes.
Prove it to yourself. You will become strong to yourself. Once you understand this, and this is back to what we were talking about earlier, Dr. Naila, once you understand real history, you'll know how to talk to that master administrator up there faking as a judge. You won't be intimidated because you'll know he's a deputy knight for the Pope of Rome under the unum sanctum policy, stealing your birthright.
Yes.
And their whole mission was to overthrow the republic in order to enslave you. At what point you don't get it? So I'm giving you documents, you can see it yourself. Now that's what the Act of Congress is, 1871. However, for those who do not understand on the surface, so how do we help someone on an immediate situation for them to learn? You know, like we share stuff, you know, you get in that in your spare time. But like if you in a situation right now where they're trying to take all your bicycle wheels off and trying to tie your sneaks together, you know, you come with a reversion. And this is actually why we did that. You see that I put it down there? Hold on. And we were talking the other day, and this is basically a statement I was telling Dr. Naila in reference to the system, because like when people in a situation on the moment, you can't really teach them. They gotta, you know, have concepts. So once you understand concept, and then you gotta remind people of stuff that they already know that they forget that they know. You know what I mean? And they figure they gotta really get down and put something together. When you understand how to count, you know, you don't start saying, you know, you go to the store, how much is that loaf of bread? It's $10.98. All right. And then we get 2 loaves of bread, $2.98, $2.88. Wait, when does this contemplate this? Then it means you can't count. Teach people to count, ain't no big deal. With 10 loaves of bread, just count and do what you do. If you're sitting there 10 hours later discussing this, that means you don't understand formula. This is why we're talking facts, so that you can understand and comprehend what you're dealing with, so you think on your feet. If you know that person ain't the judge, you don't let them get away with claiming it. And you don't call it, you call him what? Freddie Pulaski Dorothy, acting as judge.
By what his name is.
But you Do not call them judge.
Right.
All right? Now,
Henry.
because when you do, you just assign them. Now, he knows that you're an heir to the estate, but you don't know necessarily that that's how he's thinking of you when you walk through there.
Right.
You think you're dealing with some law case. He's dealing with your trust, your estate, that they're controlling through the World Global Trust. And the subdivisional operations of their agencies are assignees to administer over that trust. So he's really an administrative clerk. A magistrate, an administrative clerk. You call him accordingly. But don't lie and call him a judge, because he take that power and start taking your signatures. Which is what he's there to do anyway. So this is a reversion. Now let's go, now remember what we read earlier, right? Now keep in mind, let's go here. The hereditaments of a living man or woman includes the territorial lands. This is what you must also understand. All hereditaments in general come under land, in case you didn't know that. So when they're talking land, and you thinking they're not talking about other parts of hereditaments, then you're sorely mistaken. But we have the fortunate position that Notuali set up the old Canaanite temple and the Moorish Science Temple of America, where you could learn those things. So many of you know better, but some don't know better.
Right.
So you need to know these things. You need to know what a state is, so that you know what you're talking about. Because as soon as you demonstrate that you're incompetent, your argument's dismissed. Are we clear?
Clear.
And they immediately start tying your sneaks together, so don't start running. Yes. So, hereditaments of a living man or woman includes the territorial lands, estates, and the resources associated with and held upon or within those lands, the rights of self-determination and the rights to access of the resources of the lands, estates, are nonetheless conjoined. The nature of that reversionary claim may be constructed with, but not limited to, the following informational concepts. Keep in mind that the United States Incorporated, U.S. corporation entities are members of the Roman Curia. Write that down. They're all members of the Roman Curia. All the corporate entities are members of the Roman Curia. They don't expect you to know that, so now you're told, so you don't have to be spooked about it. Are we clear? All right. And all economic, political, and social interchanges and policies regulating the same are subject to the Inquisition and Secret Treaty of Verona. With, and this should be with, Verona will and aims. So this is actually will and with. Will and with aims of serving the Vatican and its bishopric. So keep in mind, all the licenses and franchises given to all corporate entities and agencies are actually pledges to the Vatican. And all of them are members of the Roman Curia. Are we clear?
Yes.
Subdivisional agencies and clubs, etc., get a 501c3 for control purposes. This is where they don't talk about this kind of information, meaning they don't rock the boat. Now, if they expose this kind of information, their 501c3 status will be removed.
Right.
In other words, their non-tax status is their reward, plus other slush funds that are not necessarily public. Are we clear?
Clear.
Yeah.
So, these policies have been and are enforced by the de facto members of the U.S. Congress. De facto, get used to it, because that's what's been operating since '61. Distinguished from de jure. All right, that's just as an interim for those who don't know what that means. De facto is like an imposter. Like for instance, the fiat set up by the Jesuits through the Federal Reserve operations off Jekyll Island since 1913 is called de facto. Are we clear?
Clear.
So the notes that you've given and they're lying to you and telling you it's money is really de facto. It's counterfeit and it's not money, it's a debt note of the private United States corporation that was registered 1754 in France, whose debt is secretly being converted to you, descendants of the Moors, which constitutes what they keep talking about, the national debt, which is why you and your communities keep getting screwed. And also why they keep on coming in and gentrifying your communities, stealing your estates. That's the basis upon which they're doing it. Under Admiralty Maritime Law, piracy. Are we clear? All right, and the U.S. democracy platform was created in order for them to execute it without hindrance. So everybody who's a member is part of that conspiracy. Are we clear?
Clear.
And those who don't cooperate will try to counter it, like John F. Kennedy did with Executive Order 11110 to restore or reverse the operations of the of the cabal operations on May the 10th. 7 days later, he was done. Are we clear?
Clear.
And all of those notes that he had printed up, they were in Jersey. I think they're in Jersey warehouses. People have never seen them. That's backed by the constitutional thing, constitutional operations. And this has much to do with the difficulty that you see taking place now that Trump is being pressured with in the background that's not being talked about publicly. But he's under protection of Manchurian Masons and a few of P2 Masons of the Vatican Order under Pope Francis who are trying to counter, although they got rebellion against the rights. That's the real politics that's taking place today. All right, and so the Manchurians are offering them to back the Republic note, which will be a domestic dollar, but it will be devaluated immediately 30%, then valuated within 6 months another 30%. That's what they're trying to avoid right now, because all the banks will collapse. Any account that you got in any of those banks is not yours, it's theirs. So you know, whatever you decide to do is on you, but I would suggest get as many sandwiches out while you can. Anyway, what's true? It's called House Joint Resolution 2847. Account is theirs, not yours. It's considered an unsecured loan. Anyway, and so they're going to use it to actually try to compensate their own private debt that is overwhelming by saying it's your debt by claiming you, U.S. stock, through U.S. citizenship under the Naturalization Act, which was modified by Ulysses H. Grant after 1854, the Knights of Columbus, Ku Klux Klan, started calling themselves white people, taking on the title of the Moors, etc., and claiming sovereignty over the land. This is what white man means. This is why when you look in the questionnaire, Gujarati say white means sovereign. You know, sovereign means God, ruler of the land. That's why the Europeans, 1854, 1863, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Chicago, Illinois took on the title of white people, and they do the march called the Mummers Parade in Philadelphia, where they took the birthright, assembled at 6 and Moor Street, celebration of the fall, and the split of the Whigamo Party with Horace Greeley, etc., and that's when they start calling themselves white people, which they are not, sovereign of the land, and they convert their private debt on you. This is what's been going on. And you must know that all your leaders already have this information, all your grand sheets and sheets. That's why the Moorish movement exists. So when they pretend they don't know this, you decide what you want to think. And if you don't think Drawley did that caveat into for nothing, I suggest that you look at it again. And if you don't think that he did the additional constitutional bylaws for nothing, I suggest you look at that again, particularly at Act 1. Say again?
The Mummers Museum is located at 3rd and Washington.
Yes. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Yeah. Which is that's for the Pope of Rome. So their concepts are wrong. They think that the person sitting up on that bench is a judge when he's a private administrator of the World Global Trust under oath of the 3rd article of Treaty of Verona and Act 1. All scholars know this. All scholars know this. All ministers know this. And particularly all grant seekers and people that claim to support no dwelling, which is why the movement exists for the restoration of the stolen birthright, because that's where it was stolen.
It's the masses.
You understand what I'm saying to you? So what is the job of someone who knows? Not someone who's, you ain't master teacher, that's basic stuff. If you have a child that can't count, you can't send them to the store anymore because they keep going to the store with 100 note, come back with 2 cents, and talk about the loaf of bread, talk about it's a matter of interpretation. No, you teach them to count. It's very simple. Synopsis. Please, because of our conversation, interject when you please do.
Okay,
And so that we can work this out.
all right.
Because people need to know, even you all need to know why you're here. Beyond the moment,
Islam.
you know, with the unborn in these stargates womb. That's what we're really after. Because most of the old elders are contaminated, meaning that they're willing to be sacrificed, but they're willing to take the young with them. Now this is back to the other issue. What is the real issue with our people and what makes them
Other healing properties. So I took divine herbs, shea butter, coconut oil, olive oil, grapeseed oil. You hear where we're at so far, right? Almond, avocado oil. The essential oils are peppermint, eucalyptus, tea tree, clove, ginger, rosemary, lavender, lemongrass, frankincense, patchouli. Now, all of these properties are great for, they have a number of things they can do. So, the number one thing I push it for is for swelling of the joints. Sisters have cycle problems, they rub it on their stomach, they rub their backs, release their pain. Where I work on my feet all day. When I come home, I rub my feet down. It takes away my swelling on my feet. I'm good. So this is something that you may want to try for any type of pain, any kind of pain. But it all actually comes back to our diet, because at the end of the day, you use these products, it's going to relieve your pain, but then you say, well, how do I have this swelling? It's our diet. So this only will refer you back to your diet. Gifts back for your time.
Islam. Islam.
So what's the donation?
Islam?
The denominations is 10 notes. And I also have a website as well. You know, I started thinking outside of the box, like thinking, well, how can I get it out there? So
Even when you know that the dog's gonna try to bite you, but you need to know the dog's trying to bite you. And this is the reason we talked about doing the reversion statement again, but I'm going to go into another part of it and prepare everybody to give an understanding of even the conversation that because it's all related.
And I talked to a sister today, and she said, oh, I used a portion, she said, no, not all of it, but she said, I used a portion of the reversioner to deal with the situation that she had, and it worked out well for her. I think what might be part of the problem, and correct me if I'm wrong, for some people, they get the information, but if they don't know how to apply it, if they don't feel skilled to stand and present themselves, and that's what we're talking about, because we always represented, or we need somebody to represent us.
We need to present.
Yeah, so because we can't present ourselves, and they don't feel like they have the skill, they hear it,
This is why they must know the history.
yeah, because you get there and you go, what if, what if I stand before this,
Wrong move.
Yeah.
Now,
If it's wrong, but I'm saying that I'm just
But
being,
look at this. Let's look at this. Why are most people intimidated? It's because they lack understanding, not because they're really totally in a subordinate position that they feel. Is that they get a little bit of information, they know they're getting screwed. Their concepts are that lawyers and attorneys deal with Constitution-preserved law, not knowing that they're actually deputy. what's going on. And as we talk many times, there are certain things that we keep doing redundantly. If people would get the concepts, they would liberate themselves. It's sort of like Prophet Noble said, if I could just get you all thinking again, you free yourselves. In other words, it's not complex. But knowing that most people are not aware of the kingship or oligarchy. However, this is the whole point. All scholars know that. And anyone in a position of authority knows that. They don't emphasize it. They're aware of it. And so when people are trying to solve their economic, social, and political problems, and they approach it outside of understanding the venue that they're actually in, they're automatically, unfairly declared incompetent by the magistrate. Then he puts a barrister on them who they think is a law officer who's really a deputy knight for the discovery doctrine. And this is what keeps happening to us over and over again. Now, and you know, in the last year, we've been over reversion here and there over and over again. But at the moment, you know, we have some questions. You can ask questions over and over again, you can answer them over and over again. If you don't know the dog that you're dealing with, you're gonna get there.
What I do is actually come out and, you know, I present it to ones and I have some samples, so everyone that's here, I'll just give you a sample of it, so you can rub some on your hand and, you know, if you have any discomfort, by the end of this evening, it will be released. I know that for sure. My 17-year-old daughter's in the back, she can testify that she's used it for different things, the ankle, stomach, really works. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Let me get that website.
She said, wait, is there any
Website.
secret ingredients? Well, yes, there are secret
Hold on,
ingredients.
in lieu of Article 24 of
Yes,
the United
yes.
Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, make
we're
sure
not
that's your
recording.
disclaimer.
We're not recording.
Yeah.
No,
Okay, just making
but you know,
sure.
it's actually .com. RastaJohnsHands.com.
Oh, I missed something. You said Rasta something.
Rasta John.
Okay, so it's
J R A S T A J O H N Hands HANDS.com. And you can order right from the site.
Thank you.
I got over there said, how can I do it? Just do it. It's been there 2 years, and it's, you know, some people, they don't get up to it. They say, oh, I can't do it.